The emergency department at 3 a.m. is not a hospital. It's an asylum. And that's when the really strange patients arrive. Not the dangerous ones. Well, sometimes the dangerous ones, but very strange patients arrive. We had this older guy come in one night, completely wrapped up in a fuzzy blanket. It was July, and he was carrying a typewriter, a bouquet of dead flowers, and an entire banana cream pie. And he says to me, I need to talk to somebody about the moon, which is not a very reassuring thing for somebody to say to you at 3 in the morning. So I asked the guy, do you know where you are? And he says, unfortunately. Honestly, that was a pretty strong answer. No, we take him to a room, and he very carefully sets the banana cream pie on the table. And then he takes the typewriter and he puts it in his lap. And then the doctor walks in and he says, Sir, why did you bring a typewriter to the emergency department? The guy says, he says, Well, inspiration is unpredictable. Again, it's a pretty good answer. So then the doctor starts asking him psychiatric questions, this and that, and are you hearing voices? And the guy says, only from people who think Marvel movies are cinema. And then he looks at me and he says, hey, what's your favorite movie? Which is not, that's not a question you expect people to ask you in the emergency department. So I tell him my favorite movie at that particular moment is Chinatown. And then he looks at me and he says, you're too tired for me to trust you. True that I was tired. I mean, why was that so accurate, you know? Uh, Later I walk by and I can hear the typewriter. And so I ask, I go, what, dude, what are you doing? He says, I'm filing a complaint. And I said, a complaint against us or me? And he says, no, I'm filing a complaint against reality. Again, fair answer. And he is going to go be admitted to inpatient. And on his way out, he hands me one of the flowers, the dead flowers. And he says to me very politely, you look like somebody that survives things. And then he walks off to go to inpatient with his fuzzy blanket and his typewriter. I still think about him sometimes. Obviously, I'm talking about him right now, but I still think about him sometimes because I think that guy understood the universe better than anyone else I've ever met.